Greetings, Marvel Strike Force community, and welcome to your community update show. Please welcome back to the show the general manager for Marvel Strike Force, Mr. Ryan Jacobson. Thank you for taking the time to come in today, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Cerebro, for having me. It's been a while. Glad to be back.
We are due. So I know a lot has been going on since July, which was your first appearance on the show. Could you give us a couple of highlights on some of the things you've been working on behind the scenes in the past 6 to 7 months?
Wow, there's a lot there. I think we've been trying to really, fix a lot of the core issues on kind of some of the way that we are operating the game, trying to put on a better experience for our players, listening to our players, right? The player council, engaging with them, listening feedback from the envoys, the community at large, as well as trying to make sure that we are trying to build the best Marvel experience possible. And I think that we're continuing to put a lot of work into that, as well as trying to develop a lot of new stuff that we're really excited about that's going to be coming out in 2024. Last year especially was just thinking about a lot of the mistakes that we had kind of made in the past and learning from those mistakes, and kind of trying to really make sure that our players' voices were really being heard and that they also knew we were listening and actually making a lot of the changes from a lot of the feedback we were receiving.
You mentioned changes. Do you have one maybe on the top of your head that you can think of a change that you think is going really well and you want to continue going down that path?
Yeah, I think there's so many, to be honest with you. I think, we got a little bit of flack for kind of recently running a gold spend event. But, if you look back, we stopped running those primarily for the entire year, right?
Yeah.
Where we knew our players really did not enjoy those types of hoarding events. I still think there's a lot to do on the kind of live ops side around kind of the overall events and experiences we want to be putting on for those players. Mm-hmm. As well as kind of going back to kind of Cosmic Crucible, right? Trying to really make sure that that was a player theory crafting mode and making sure that it wasn't a lock and key. So I think there's a lot of little examples like that where if you kind of take a look back and kind of know what we were doing, we've made a lot, in my opinion, significant changes to the way that we operate the game. And again, there's still a lot of work ahead of us. But I do feel like now we are definitely on the correct path to making sure that the community really is enjoying the experience that we're trying to deliver to them.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the smaller things, I guess you could say, that can make a huge difference. Like our recent quality of life improvement with the ISO 8 switch.
Yes.
Like the community just blew up about that and said that was one of the best ever. And that was maybe, a week of work?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we need to always try and find time to prioritize a lot of that work. I mean, there's only so many resources that can go around when you're doing game development, but it is important. And you're totally right? All those little things add up, number one, but certain things that are small can have a great impact.
So we tend to think of players as kind of like in different segments sometimes. Like we think about, our veteran players, we think about new players. There's kind of that section in between. It's a bit amorphous, which is returning players, players that maybe they got too busy in their life. Now they got some more time, they can come back, check us out, and see how things are going. What's kind of your thought process into creating a great onboarding experience for players that maybe took a few months off or even a couple of years off?
Yeah, lapsed players is always something that's difficult to kind of figure out. What is the approach? How do you want them to come back? When do you want them to come back? What we're trying to do is make sure that as a new player coming in, they have the ability to catch up much quicker than they have been in the past, right? So if you look at kind of character fountaining, I think we've actually done a great job of what we said we would set out to do, which is allowing for availability of newer characters much earlier on than we ever have done historically. I think there's also a lot of exciting things that we're going to be doing for 6-year anniversary, as well as we have some big beats coming out this year that I think hopefully for some of those players who may have felt the game was stale or stagnant will come back and go, wow, this is really exciting. I'm glad I came back to Marvel Strike Force.
So you announced in the show back in July the formation of the Player Voice Council. Is there a piece of feedback that you could highlight that they surfaced to you that the team was able to take some significant action on?
There's times where they give us feedback on specific ways that we're operating, say, an event.
Yeah.
Where they will tell us, hey, we didn't appreciate this or didn't like this for these very specific reasons. Then we listen to that kind of feedback and we make sure that moving forward, we're iterating on it. Or there's examples with features. They get kind of early insight to some of the features that we release. They give us some feedback and we actually really listen. And there's a couple of examples where we pivoted the way that we were personally going to develop that feature into listening to that feedback and making some of those changes.
So now that we're kind of up to speed now, 2024, I wrote the preview blog. I know we got some big stuff coming up in 2024. Could you, since November when we kind of made some of the announcements, are there any more details you can give us on some of the things we should be looking forward to?
Battle World, first and foremost, we are really excited about. There's a lot of our resources right now actively working on it. I'm continually seeing what we're developing, and it makes me really excited, as well as Moments. I think that's one of the things that I really believe is going to help a lot more of that theory crafting and being able to kind of do and utilize characters that you would want to use that maybe aren't nearly as meta relevant, and bringing some of that back. There's a symbiote behind you. I'll just kind of, leave it at that.
Ooh, okay. I like that. I have to circle back onto something. You mentioned Moments. We haven't actually talked about Moments yet. Is that something that you care to go into a little bit?
Moments at a high level is a way to be able to equip some stats to characters that will help to make them be more relevant where we are today in the current meta.
Is it at least safe to say that Moments is fairly different than any of the existing types of things that are like that in the game?
100%. Yeah. This is something brand new that there's nothing like this inside of the game right now. This is not an extension of anything that we've ever created. This is something brand new that we feel can really change up the meta of the game.
How about new characters? We've released a lot of big names into the game. Thank you for Nightcrawler, by the way. But our players still have some pretty big names, that you would recognize at the top of the list. Are we going to get around to more of those this year?
Yeah, it's funny. I always watch all the videos. I read all the Reddits. I see everything. A lot of people picked up on a little Easter egg we put in one of our recent splash screens, but they actually picked up on the wrong part of the Easter egg, which was interesting to me. So there are some characters that are going to be coming out this year that I personally am very excited for. Again, I love Marvel. I love this IP. Feel very fortunate to work on it.
I guess as the GM, you have a little bit of influence. I think Darkhawk was one of yours that you were really kind of pushing the combat team for, right?
Yeah, there's always a lot, right? As the GM, yes, I guess it gives me a little bit more sway in kind of some of the characters that we push out. Yeah, Darkhawk, as a kid growing up, I always thought he was a really cool, fun-looking character. And if we were creating Pegasus, I was like, hey, this is a perfect time for us to kind of slip him in there. I think there's a lot more influence I probably have over the 2024 lineup. So yeah, if everyone's disappointed, they can come yelling at me. But I think we have some exciting characters that will be coming out this year.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to come here and chat with us. This has been enlightening, and I know our players really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Cerebro. Have a good one.
Please welcome back to the show an amazing person, game designer, Mr. Byron Melsack, who's rocking an amazing shirt today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
So before we jump into today's main topic, I always like asking you meta questions about the grander Marvel universe. Have you seen the new Echo show yet?
I have. I've actually really been enjoying it. I'm actually a fan of stories about more of the street level hero antics in the Marvel universe. One of the things I actually really enjoy about the show is this is going to sound cheesy, but one of the themes of love in the show, but how that's shown by an entire family accommodating a a family member who's deaf by everyone in the family learning ASL, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I also really enjoy when you mention kind of like the street level heroes. You tend to get more of those close quarter combats, right? Like in the first episode when Echo and Daredevil are like fighting in a cage and they have limited mobility, and so they have to really use the environment to their advantage. I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's also like you get a better sense of like the consequences on more normal people, like what Echo does in the second episode and the ramifications that they have on her loved ones. But I'm also like, the other reason why I was really excited for the show is I really liked Hawkeye, and the fact that this is basically a direct continuation of those story threads is really cool.
Well, speaking of echoes from the past, see what I did there? Okay. We have a new team coming out that is called Out of Time. Now, can I take that trait as literally as it sounds?
Yeah, absolutely. We have the Out of Time consists of 5 characters, so 3 new characters and 2 reworks. Our 2 reworks are Captain America and Captain Carter, who are from the 1940s. But then we also have Black Knight, specifically the version from the Arthurian legends. We have Starbrand, but Starbrand from a million BC. So actually the first human Starbrand. And then finally we have Cosmic Ghost Rider, who's from the far-flung future.
I love Cosmic Ghost Rider's look, by the way. Like, I love the helmet. Like, it makes my brain kind of work and be like, how can you have a flaming skull inside of an enclosed helmet? But it looks neat.
Yeah, no, the art team really went to town on it. And sometimes you just see characters in Marvel comic books. You're like, I don't know what that is, but I want that.
But it looks cool.
Yeah.
So I don't want to just assume that all heroes know each other, but being both 1 million BC, are Starbrand and Black Panther aware of each other in the game?
So our Starbrand and Black Panther million BC do know each other. They actually were in the same and on the same Avengers team, which was called Avengers in 1 million BC.
Oh wow! So the whole title of Captain America: The First Avenger was big fat lie. Because
it technically it was, yes.
A million plus years ago.
There were 1 million BC. There was an entire Avengers team, an entire story of them saving the world. So yeah, no, that you're right about that.
All right, so Cap is back. How many reworks is this for Cap?
Since the global release of the game, he's had 4 reworks.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the only time he shows up on a lot of teams in Marvel Strike Force. In fact, the only place he shows up on more teams is in the comic runs.
Well, he's the gift that keeps on giving. So, feel good about building up your Captain America.
Yeah, if you love Captain America and you've invested a lot in him, you will always get value out of him.
So this is quite the eclectic group of characters that we've assembled here. Any insights as to the character selection?
I mean, yeah, Out of Time is certainly a hodgepodge of different heroes, but we like doing this occasionally to really drive home the point that's like, this is a team that's going to have some different mechanics into the game or a different way to play. So from the design side, that's what made them really exciting to work on.
Well, I really appreciate you peeling back the curtain for our players. Let's really get into it and dive into the kits. Again, we're not going to go over all the details here. We'd be here all day, but they are up over on MarvelStrikeForce.com, so you can pull that up, be reading along as we are talking about them. Could you give us a high-level description of the team and where they are going to be the most useful?
I'd be happy to. Out of Time is going to be a powerful new Alliance war team. They're going to be coming in as general use war team, so they won't have any specific callouts to either offense or defense, so that'll give players the flexibility to either use them to clear out rooms or defend rooms. Black Knight is a protector that turns his defensive stats into damage. All of Black Knight's active abilities deal bonus damage based on his armor percent bonus, while his ultimate and passive attacks deal damage based on his max health. Black Knight retaliates against any enemy that attacks him or his allies while he is charged. Starbrand is a brawler who deals heavy damage and has special targeting on all of his active abilities. His basic will do extra damage on an enemy with the highest damage. His special will do an extra attack on the enemy with the highest speed, and his ultimate will do an extra attack on the most injured enemy. All of these ignore taunt and stealth. Cosmic Ghost Rider is a controller who has a rather unique passive ability. On spawn, he doubles the amount of speed bar gained by enemies at the start of battle. At first, this sounds like a bad thing, until you read another part of the ability which says that all enemies who take a turn before Cosmic Ghost Rider or his allies have their focus lowered by 5,000% and damage lowered by 50%. He will also be our first character that clears battlefield effects. Captain America is getting a boost to his base stats, but it's mostly his health that's increasing and he's getting a bit faster. Some of his abilities now synergize with Out of Time, such as his bonus focus for his shield throw ultimate. Captain Carter is getting similar treatment with a boost to base stats and added callouts to the Out of Time trait. But she is getting some new functionality added to her special and ultimate ability, so now they can no longer be counterattacked in war.
So going back to Cosmic Ghost Rider for just a second, where did this idea of like giving debuffs to characters that do their attacks first, like where did that idea come from?
It was actually a bit of an accident. Many characters can gain speed bar at the start of the game, and it's very powerful. I had been trying to figure out how to counter it, so I was experimenting with different ways to diffuse it. In one playtest, I actually accidentally set a value to positive instead of negative, and suddenly the enemy team was taking even more turns before any Out of Time character. But combined with the huge reduction in damage and focus for the enemy team and Black Knight's retaliate attack on his passive, it turned into a devastating combo against the enemy teams. Turns out the answer wasn't to try to drain the enemy team of their speed bar, but to flood them with it.
That's awesome. That's a great story. I feel like some of the greatest inventions ever were kind of pseudo accidents, right? I think cornflakes was one, right? Like it was an accident that they left the dough out on the table, and then in the morning they came back. It was like, oh, I invented cornflakes.
Well, it was a similar story to penicillin.
Oh yeah.
You know, he left the petri dish out with the fungus and realized that the bacteria was gone the following morning, and that's how we got penicillin.
So we've got cornflakes, penicillin, Cosmic Ghost Rider.
There you go. Yeah.
You can put them all together. There's another interesting part to his kit too, where if he's exhausted, one of the parts of his abilities is basically turned off. And exhausted is something that's unique to war, right?
Correct. Cerebro, what you're pointing out is in his passive, whenever an enemy character uses an ultimate ability, Cosmic Ghost Rider will give himself and all of his Out of Time allies a big chunk of barrier. It's a great and powerful, defensive ability. However, to kind of alleviate the stress of facing Out of Time on defense, we added a check for it. So essentially, if you're facing Out of Time on defense for the first time, you're going to have to deal with this mechanic. But if you're going in for our subsequent try, Exhausted gets applied to the defending team, and that Exhausted mechanic is going to turn off the barrier gain part of Cosmic Ghost Rider's passive.
So one of the things that we were discussing before the show is that the design team is looking at expanding Exhausted and how it can potentially be inflicted. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually. I'm not going to say it outright, but if you look through Cosmic Ghost Rider's kit, he has a call out to a specific character who's technically not out yet. Uh-huh. So I think maybe players can put one and one together with that one.
So safe to say that line about Exhausted probably has a little bit more to it than what we can get into today, right?
Correct.
Cool. So diamonds are still a relatively new feature in the game. We've got 5 characters that we're going to try and bring up to 3 diamonds. Do you have any recommendations on which characters that you would advise players try to prioritize out of those 5?
Oh, absolutely. Black Knight would definitely be at the top of my list.
Gotcha.
Because his ultimate and his passive attacks deal damage based on his maximum health, getting diamonds onto Black Knight is really going to push the amount of damage he can do.
And of course, we also have to talk about recommendations for ISO 8. What are you favoring in your playtesting?
Sure. Black Knight uses his defensive stats to deal damage, so Fortifier is a good pick for him. If you plan on running him in teams without dedicated support, Healer is strangely a good pick for him because of his large health pool. Starbrand already delivers multiple attacks with each of his active abilities, so Striker is a great add. Cosmic Ghost Rider has very high focus, so using Skirmisher to reliably apply those vulnerables is a great choice. Captain America is still a durable tank, so Fortifier is still good on him. Captain Carter has formidable healing abilities, so Healer will just make her healing that much better.
Are there any other particular synergies that you would like to highlight with the Out of Time team?
Yes, there are. The big wombo combo between Cosmic Ghost Rider and Black Knight will require their full 5-man Out of Time team to be present in Alliance War to unlock their full potential. That being said, Black Knight's passive attack works in any mode and activates when any allies attack, not just Out of Time allies. Cosmic Ghost Rider's ability to clear Nova's battlefield effect with his special and Red Hulk's battlefield effect with his ultimate also work in any game mode. Starbrand provides passive stats for damage, drain, and crit chance. He provides those passive stats not just to Out of Time allies, but also to Black Panther 1 million BC.
All right, Byron. Well, I think it's time for us to find out when are we going to get the Out of Time team.
Well, you should look forward to acquiring the new Out of Time characters and our next patch of 7.7, which should be releasing very soon.
Byron, thank you so much for coming by and giving us the information. The players really appreciate it. You're the best.
Well, I think you're the best, Cerebro, and thanks for having me on.
Before we end the show today, I have a bit of personal news that I'd like to share with you. I will be heading out on a new adventure, which means that this will be my final episode of Strike Time. This was an incredibly difficult decision for me because I love so many things about Marvel Strike Force, my coworkers, our partners at Marvel. Of course, the community is just amazing. I've been working on this game for nearly 5 years at this point. Heck, we even did a number of episodes of the show from my house, on my couch. And the community was so supportive through all of it. I really just cannot thank you enough. You have enabled for me to do my dream job. Like, how many people get to do this? This game still has such a long life ahead of it and so many amazing things planned. So do me one last favor. Would you help blow up this video? Like it, share it, comment. Let's make this the most watched Strike Time episode ever. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, and I'll see you out there. As always, thank you for watching this episode of Strike Time. Yeah, I'll even miss you guys too. No, I know you're not real, and that talking to you makes me borderline schizophrenic, but Spider-Man talks to himself all the time, so can't be that bad.